Hello and welcome to this update of the state of the presidential election as of October 27th. My name is John Toppelmeyer. I'm going to have a brief overview in this video of the current state of the overall race across the country. But as with the last couple of days, I'm going to give a lot of focus on the state of the race in from the early voting in Nevada. Very interesting numbers that are coming out of there. I'm not seeing this anywhere else, anywhere on YouTube and the internet anywhere. So if you're interested in this, keep watching because I think this is some interesting numbers that are coming out of there that's not getting a lot of attention. I'm going to close. I've done some numbers from North Carolina in the early voting, and I'll give you my assessment of where the race is at this point in North Carolina. And the state of the race as of October the 27th in the U.S. presidential election, I have very slight changes. There were a few national polls that came out that overall didn't have much of an impact. A couple of tracking polls and one ABC Ipsos poll that was favored Harris, but it didn't change things very much. I have it just right at 50-50. So 50-50 in the popular vote. I have Trump still ahead in all of the seven swing states. Two of them had new polling. Arizona and Georgia had new polling, so it made some real slight changes. Again, it pretty much reinforced the numbers that we've had previously. So it's not a substantial change. We're just not seeing any substantial change from the polling that we're getting here. So let me go quickly over the seven swing states and tell you what I think is the state of the race there. And we have in Nevada, it's the closest of the swing states. I think it's 0.6 percentage points. Actually, I'm going to show you it might be a bit more than that based on the early voting numbers, but this is my estimation based on the polling of 0.6 percentage points. Wisconsin, 0.8 percentage point lead for Trump. Michigan, 1.1%. All of it real close. These are all tight. So these are all very, very tight. North Carolina, 1.4%. Pennsylvania, 1.6. Arizona, 2.1. And Georgia, the one where Trump appears to have the biggest lead, I think it's about a 2.6% lead based on the latest polls, state poll and the national polling. As I say, Trump, I think, is still ahead 312 to 226. But now let's turn our attention to the state of Nevada and the early voting update that's coming out of that state. And in Nevada, early voting, this is my estimate of the state based on the latest returns that have been posted by the state on both mail-in voting and in-person early voting. So this is through Sunday, the 27th. And I have Trump. I think that Trump is ahead by about 20,000 votes based on this updated number. It's a tick higher. He keeps on ticking higher. His lead keeps on increasing. Now, the percentage share dropped from 3.4 to 3.3, not much of a change, but the overall lead by Trump seems to be growing as we head into the last week of in-person voting. There are 5 more days of in-person voting, Monday through Friday. Friday this week is the last day of in-person voting in Nevada. So, and we're going to be monitoring this very closely because I think this is going to be an important part of this election. I think this lead is going to continue to grow. And let me show you something very interesting that I found that when I looked at the numbers and I did a deeper dive on the difference between 2020 and 2024. And here's what I found. The Democratic voters, a big decline. It's a 23% decline through Sunday for the in-person early voting so far, that the number of Democratic voters Registered Democratic voters in-person early voting has declined 23% through Sunday from the same period in 2020. It's a 23% decline, 24,500 votes, actual votes. The Republicans have lost 6,200 voters between 2020 and 2024 in-person voting at this point. It's down less than 2,000. Now, the interesting thing here is that over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the in-person voting seemed to pick up, and it got up pretty much at the same level of what we saw in 2020. Lagged the first week, maybe it's picking up. But the interesting thing is it picked up for the Democrats and it picked up for the Republicans over the weekend. So it didn't change. There wasn't any change for the Democrats. More Democrats came out and voted than have been voting in over the weekend compared to 2020, but more Republican voters also turned out over the weekend for in-person voting. Now, if 2024 is anything like 2020, if it's anything like 2020, the Republicans in-person early voting are going to pick up roughly 30,000 more votes over the Democrats in the next 5 days. So if it does pick up, the beneficiary of this is probably going to be the Republicans, but we'll have to see what happens in reality. That's just a comparison with 4 years ago, but real people, real voters are going to be coming to the polls over the next 5 days there, and we're going to have those numbers. And I think this is going to tell us a lot about the state of the race. And I think it's telling us some stuff nationally. There may be some problem with Democratic enthusiasm for Democratic voters over Republican voters. We'll be looking and seeing if we can find the same thing going on in-person voting and mail-in voting in the other states. But this is definitely here. And the thing about this to remember, I've looked at most of the other states in-person early voting. This is by far the most transparent. This is by far the state where the numbers that you're getting are really reflecting the entire electorate. So this is one of the reasons why I'm focusing on this, because these numbers reflect the entire electorate. So finally, I'm going to turn my attention to North Carolina early voting. I used the same approach as I used for Nevada. I think these numbers are a bit fuzzier, though. But the thing I want to say here, one, there's a substantial early vote. It's about 2.5 million people have already voted, and this is mostly by mail. I'm not sure if they have any in person, but I believe most or all of this is mail-in vote. But I think that Harris has a slight lead, but this is fuzzy. Now, one of the interesting things is that I've looked at this, and in the rural states, Harris, the numbers are up compared to the final vote. Relative percentage is up compared to the percentage of Biden in 2020, but in the more urban counties of the state, Trump's support or Trump's performance in the early voting compared to the final numbers in 2020, that his numbers seem to be up there. So it's muddy. It's pretty muddy. And another thing to remember here, most people voting in early voting are older people. So we're seeing not much voting by people under 45 years old. And that's across the board in most of the of the mail-in and early voting states that we're seeing so far. It's mostly older people that have voted so far. So that could be interesting that Harris seems to be leading in that. But I think it's still early. We want to watch this. So that's my video for today on the state of the race. Come back tomorrow. If you think that this content is interesting, please share. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon. Thanks. Bye.